Thank you, everyone. It's so nice to be here. If you haven't gotten the chance already or they haven't been passed out, there are packets coming around. I'll try to stay still. I'm a mover. You're going to learn that about me. The pink paper is the one that Kristen referenced regarding the survey. So if you're like, what papers are those? It's the pink one, and I'll cue you at the end as a reminder. Let's get started. Please feel free to eat and jump in as you feel comfortable. I'm going to do my best to. Oh, okay. This was working. Ooh. Exciting.
Let me see if I can.
Thank you. Oh wait. Here we go. Appreciate it. So as was already said, my background is a combination of education and mental health. I did spend a lot of time in New York, so I'm always happy to talk about New York Eats for anyone who wants to talk about that. It's very close to my heart. Since moving to Chicago, I've spent the heart of my career with JPA, Juvenile Protective Association. We're a nonprofit that supports kids and their families and the people who support kids and their families. So that's exactly where you all fit in. Because of time, I want to go for it. I want to jump right in. I have to figure out where to point it. That's cute. Today we're going to talk a little bit about goodbyes and endings, the complex factors that contribute, the feelings around these endings. We're going to look at the means of communicating about endings and goodbyes, and then identify best practices. And the hope is that you take some concrete things with you today that you can apply to, well, tomorrow's the weekend, Monday, or the next day that you sit down with these kids. So I know you all have lunch, but one thing that you will learn about me is once a teacher, always a teacher. And I was not a teacher that would allow my students to just sit there and skate by. So you have an active role in your learning today, and that starts with our warm-up. The warm-up today is called Chalk Talk. This is a protocol that's supported by School Reform Initiative. What that means is it's an activity or an outline of structure that you can put your own content to. So the idea of this is that you can take some of these activities and possibly even use them with students the next time you engage with them. You would use different content, different material, but the way we set up and process the activity, that you could recreate. So you'll see around yourself, around the room today, different poster papers with words inside them, and you should all have a marker, and if you don't, there are spares at the front. When I say go, but not yet, practicing our language, we're going to have a silent conversation. What that looks like is you will have 2 minutes to walk around the room to these different posters, writing on the poster your response, your idea, thoughts that come to mind. It could be other words, it could be feelings, it could be a picture, if that's how you like to communicate. It might be that you see somebody else writing something, or you see something else written up there that someone else wrote, and you want to spring off of that, and you add a line and can draw to it. Maybe you agree and you want to put a star. Maybe you're confused and you want to put a question mark or an exclamation mark for like, yes, that for sure. We're just going to engage in dialogue, but we're going to do it silently and completely on the paper. Any questions? Everyone got their marker? All right, your 2 minutes begins now. 2 ways to process it. There's the process itself, what it felt like to do it, and then there's the content, what's actually on the paper, what we really were talking about. So let's start with the process. What was it like to have a silent conversation?
Boring.
Appreciate that honest feedback, yeah.
I'm going to say the opposite, calming. It was a struggle.
What about it was difficult?
Because some of us can't shut up ever.
Yes! Yes! Yeah.
It was kind of reflective in that way. It was more of an internal process.
Which can be challenging, or it could be calming, maybe depending on your state. Did I see a hand in the back or walking towards?
I was gonna say the same exact thing. About it was just like I'm processing my feelings, which is felt easier to do that.
So that's something to take in. That for some, the silence is calming, an easier way to think and have your voice be heard. Everyone's voice was heard equally on the page. Everyone had the chance to share on the page. And for others, it can be really agitating to sit in silence or to be asked to not use their voice out loud. And it's okay to have both of those experiences, and we want to hold the possibility of both experiences when we're going into an activity like that, to say that some people may respond really positively and some may hate this. And either way, you're learning something about yourself, which is great. So now let's switch to the content, meaning what's actually on the paper. Going around, I mean, here are the different words: ending, farewell, goodbye, loss, see you later, transition, wrapping up. A rose by any other name? So what surprised you as you walked around the papers? What you saw or how you felt or what was actually on there? Yes?
Some elicited a majority of positive responses and some elicited a majority of negative responses.
But don't they mean the same thing?
More or less.
I think there were a lot of forward-looking comments. It wasn't just end, it was what might be next.
And like to connect those two, I noticed that the positive ones did kind of allude to the future or next time, and then the ones that connotated more of a sad meeting to me were the ones that didn't have that.
So with all that in mind, does it matter which word we use? Why?
The feeling that you had. Yeah, I felt like the word loss was a little strong.
Yeah, it doesn't sound bad.
Like, because they've, I mean, in speaking with some of them, I felt like they've lost so much that that word is strong to them.
It is a very powerful word. And can trigger a lot of meanings, yeah.
Can't hear her.
Oh, thank you. As you're speaking, if you could use a level 4 voice. Could you say that maybe one more time?
Oh, gosh.
I'm going to go over here to encourage you to use your level 4 voice.
I feel that the word loss is a very strong word because they've lost so much already when you hear their stories that it could, like you said, mean a lot of things.
That the loss, the word loss could, excellent. We got that. A round of applause for that bravery. It takes a lot to use the level 4 voice in front of a big crowd, right? Not everyone is like me and loves this kind of punishment of public speaking. Yeah, that loss can be a really triggering word, especially for the kids we work with in Chicago communities. And it is very significant and should not be used flippantly or lightly. And so the question is that I heard here, like, it doesn't seem to fit, or the statement I heard is it doesn't seem to fit. My question is, does it apply? And we'll look a little bit more at that. So the words we use matters. They evoke feelings. I don't think I'm telling you anything new. In fact, what you'll learn about working together with me is I'm not here to necessarily tell you anything new. It's to push you to your own deeper understanding. So let's look a little bit more at how we feel about goodbyes. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So usually we jump to the good. A lot of people were talking about that, and a lot of these can evoke. Wrapping up, there's some like, so much progress made, high five, right? Really positive. What are some of the ways that you could think of an ending in the life course that's celebrated, and how we mark that celebration?
Graduation.
Yeah. Say it one more time, a little louder.
Graduation.
Yeah, that's our classic one, right? Hats in the air, popping bubbly juice. Right? And why is that?
They're moving on, hoping to something better. They're closing hard work behind and moving on to something.
There's an accomplishment made, right? And we should honor that accomplishment. That's really important. We also want to celebrate what was. Oh, I guess I went in two on that one. We also want to celebrate what was. There we go. it's important to note that, to take the time. So much went into it, so rather than just, oh, on this day things end, let's take a moment and really emphasize how good it is. But endings can have some bad sides too, right? They bring up difficult feelings. Anyone think of a life experience that was an ending that might bring up some not so positive experiences?
Breakup.
Yeah, depending on which side of the breakup, you may have more or less negative feelings about it, right? And there's, I don't know if we would use this word, a colleague definitely loves this word, loss there, or at least a separation. So why is that? Because there was something in that relationship, and now you are saying goodbye. A move is another common example. Can be a positive, but you're moving away from people who you probably built strong relationships with. Then there's the ugly. Often the tough feelings get a bad rap sheet. And I a lot of times hear like, well, we're not going to talk about those negative feelings. And like, don't talk about those bad feelings. They're difficult to have, but the feelings in and of themselves are not bad. Has anyone here seen the movie Inside Out? It's one of my favorite ones to reference. Anyone feel comfortable sharing like a 3-sentence synopsis of Inside Out? So in short, it's about a little kid and you go inside and meet her feelings. And joy, one of her feelings, along with sadness and anger and disgust and this is another one I can never remember, nervousness. Joy thinks she should be in charge because who doesn't want more joy in their life? And wouldn't everything be better if joy ran the world? And what we come to discover is that joy can't do it alone. In fact, if it's not for things like sadness, for the other emotions, we can't get through some really important situations. Sometimes we need our anger to propel us to the next step. Sometimes we need sadness to be vulnerable to show our connection with other people. So rather than just dismiss these behaviors, we want to separate them out and say they're really important. We need to give them a voice. We do want, or the feelings, we do want to note the behaviors that come of this may sometimes be troublesome. When someone gets angry and punches their fist through a wall, or worse, another human being, yeah, that's concerning, right? That's not positive. That's even bad. But their anger in and of themselves is not bad. So we have to figure out how to separate these out. And often what happens is when people try not to talk about the feelings, they grow inside. In fact, research shows that talking about feelings lessens the negative impact. It's counterintuitive to what we normally say. Don't talk about it, we won't have to think about it, everything will be okay. But we do need to talk about it. At the end of the day, there's joy and there's pain. Especially when goodbyes. And I'm not just talking about the kids. Both are reasonable, valid, and important components of any meaningful goodbye. The fact that you've built a relationship with these kids and that it hurts and is hard to say goodbye shows how much you care and show how much you're cared about. We don't want to dismiss that. Because your relationship matters. So, figuring out the grief that goes with goodbyes. Grief is the conflicting feelings caused by a change or an end in a familiar pattern of behavior. Sometimes I get pushback and say, nobody's dying, Michelle. Why would you use the word grief? But as you think about the change that's coming up in your relationships as you say goodbye to these students, all of a sudden this definition might feel a little bit more accurate. It's a part of life. They go hand in hand, right? The trick is how we create space for both. Furthermore, if we can teach our kids that they can tolerate both of those feelings, starting off in small doses and expanding as we go along, they will be better prepared for life. Who here has never experienced anything bad, any loss, any sadness, any grief of any kind? You can't see, but nobody's hands are up. That's because it happens to all of us. And isn't it better to go through that with someone who can support you rather than when you're all alone? and to show that we don't have to punch a person or a wall to get through it, that we can talk about things in healthy ways. We can even cry, we can scream, we can do a lot of things to process it, but it doesn't have to destroy us from the inside out. Sad versus mad. Angry is so much easier. Why? Because there's an action to it. There's a purpose, there's a drive, there's a passion. Here are your two choices. Sit there, do nothing, something's really hard. Do nothing, just sit there, live with it. Or get up and do something about it. Which one are you gonna pick?
Get up.
Yeah.
Do something about it.
Yeah. A lot of times though, the only thing our kids know how to do is to be angry, is to punch that wall, or even that person. And so we want to open it up and see and show that there's often a sadness behind that anger, and that that's okay. Not only is that okay, that's acceptable and encouraged. So we need to give that time for youth to talk about their feelings. And sometimes they're not ready to do so. That's okay. That's why we need to give them a lot of opportunities. They say it can take thousands of times before you can change a behavior. And the difference between, your average karaoke singer and the Beatles is like 10,000 repetitions. So if we expect our kids to get any good at this, we're gonna have to give them chance after chance after chance. And letting them know that you're available when they are ready and that you're gonna support them, but also realize that they're the ones in charge of their own feelings and they get to decide when they wanna talk and when they're not ready. Like, that's the balance. That's the key. Before I go into this, questions, comments? I realize our pace is going to be a little bit quick today just because of our time limit, so acknowledging that. Drawings are a great way to communicate, especially about feelings, especially for children. The way child development works, language comes after play. I have a 1-year-old son, and he is so driven by play. Sometimes that can get a little difficult, right? We're in the bath, and all he wants to do is splash. I'm trying to put on pajamas, and he's reaching for his toys. But it's just this natural drive in humans. We all, think about how you felt as you picked up the marker, and why not just do this with pens and papers, or with PowerPoints? It's not as fun. Language is something that develops later in life, so it's a natural way to communicate for kids if we use drawings, art, and play. Also, it accesses a different part of the brain and the part that's more connected to our feelings. So one of the papers that you have is, unfortunately we won't have the time to do it, but I'm just going to walk you through it, is an opportunity, is the outline of a person, a gingerbread person, the opportunity to use that as a tool to facilitate the conversation. And the way it works is I give the person I'm working with, sometimes a child, sometimes adult, a bag of markers and this outline. And the idea is that they use the markers to draw how they feel. They can use colors, they can draw pictures, they can write words, they can draw inside the body, outside the body, however they want to do it. It is fascinating to see, especially what kids come up with. I've had kids say, in talking about the next step, that they feel like their feet are in blocks of cement because they're so unsure of where to move next. They didn't have the language for that, they drew it, and from that, the language came. So think about what it might be like to take a bag of markers or crayons and sit down with your kids and say, what does it feel like for us to say goodbye, and how might you draw that out? And then from there, they can use their words. Questions about that? As they're doing this, you're saying, well, what do? You reply empathically. Seems so simple. Let me tell you, my first year of graduate school as a social worker was basically centered on this one idea. I train graduate students from all around Chicago. We spend the whole year refining this one idea. People spend so much time figuring out what does that mean just to respond empathically. Again, it seems so simple, but what we often jump to is the solution. As adults, we want to make it better and fix it. Totally natural. And the idea behind employing empathy is that we just match the kid exactly where they are. We're providing language. That's it. You seem to feel upset. You seem to feel frustrated. You seem to feel excited. I feel that, I sense that. What I understand you feeling is, I wonder if you feel. So what you'll notice in all of these sentence starters is there's not a definitive statement of you are, and here's what I'm going to do. It's just a curiosity. That's what we're moving towards. This word changed my life. Seems so simple. And what happens is so many people say one thing and then introduce this word but and then say the other thing. I know you're really sad about us saying goodbye, but think about what you're going to do next year and how great that will be. Oh, the end of school is really tough, but the summer, you're going to get ice cream and play in the park. And what it unintentionally does is it dismisses the first statement. It doesn't really matter that you're sad. It doesn't really matter we spent a whole year getting to know each other, working on these things, accomplishing these things, because ice cream sweeps all that aside. What if instead we said and? You're feeling really sad. And there are some exciting things coming up in your life. Both are true. All right, so let's break down this goodbye a little bit more. First, we have to look at the who. As you think about the students you work with, think about them specifically. It matters, right? Their temperament. Some of your students maybe are a little bit more easygoing, flexible. Goodbyes are going to feel different for them than the student who is very rigid and precise, who is maybe a little bit more abrasive, who is a little bit more anxious or self-protective. We have to look at how they cope. Some kids use humor, which can be really hard because as we're talking about something serious, they start laughing or making jokes or trying to play with others. Some escape, they avoid. The Irish goodbye, anyone hear of an Irish goodbye? You just peace out, don't say anything, disappear. And all of a sudden, you're at the party and someone's like, where'd Michelle go? She was just here. Did she just leave? Avoiding. That is no diss to the Irish. I did not name that. I actually love Irish people. I think they're very welcoming. Love my time there. So we want to think about how they're able to tolerate this goodbye and how they respond to it. That's going to affect how we engage with a child around their goodbye. And then, of course, we have to think of their personal history. So as it was brought up, a lot of these kids have gone through some really intense losses. We know that the violence in Chicago is unlike almost any other city in this nation. We know that the racial prejudices, that the way that a lot of these children are growing up today is so unfair. And I recognize that I, in a position of privilege and power, can't even begin to speak to or pretend to own their stories. And still, they walk around with them every day in a way that we'll probably never understand. We can only be curious about. And you might be feeling like, what does my goodbye have to do with all of that, right? It doesn't rise to the same level as losing your father, losing your sibling, losing your mother, losing a grandmother, losing a close friend, losing a schoolmate. And every goodbye is connected. The goodbyes that you had early on in life impact how you process the goodbyes today. Whether you're able to tolerate and sit with the goodbye, whether as a breakup, you can go to the other person and say, you know, this really isn't working out. I respect you, but you're not for me. Good luck, goodbye. Or if that feels way too intense, and you change your phone number, change your name, leave the state. You probably did not have very many healthy goodbyes when you were younger. So the goodbye that you have with these kids will likely touch on the goodbyes they've experienced before. the losses they've experienced before. And those losses may or may not have been processed in a healthy way. They're so big. So we want to think of that when we're saying our goodbye. It's something we call transference when we work in therapy, that the experiences from the past is put onto you. So no, you are not their mother, their father, their brother, their sister, their uncle, their aunt. But in that moment of goodbye, when that feeling hits of, oh, this again, I'm losing somebody, it may flash. And they may not even know that's why they're getting so upset. We have to think about the what, the current situation. Is this goodbye because you both have grown to the depth of your relationship and the next important step in growth is saying goodbye? Or is it because it's June 1st and the calendar says on June 1st we say goodbye whether you like it or not? Is it because you've aged out of this program? Is it because I got a promotion at work and I can no longer continue this program in the way that you deserve, so I need to say goodbye? There's a lot of ways to say goodbye, but that all is going to influence how it feels. We want to think of the where. Right? In our society, we're expected to have some emotion, but not too much emotion about goodbyes. If I threw myself on this floor and started crying when you all leave at 1 o'clock, our society would say that's not appropriate. What's also developmentally appropriate too? So when my 1-year-old son, dropped him off and I went to leave him today, he cried. No one judged him for that. He's 1. It's hard for him. But again, if I, a grown woman, cried when you left, you might feel like, what is that? So thinking about not just the age of the child you work with, but how old they feel. You might know what this means. You're sitting with someone who's 10, but man, they feel 3. You're sitting with a coworker who's in their 40s, but man, they feel 14. That's the developmental. This is a little bit of statistics just related to what we know in terms of loss. Rates of youth's exposure to sexual abuse, a common trauma, are estimated to be 25 to 43%. That's what's reported. Think of all the things that are not reported. It's probably at least double that. In a Chicago-based survey of elementary and middle school students, 30% had witnessed a stabbing, 26% had witnessed a shooting. That was done in '93. Can you imagine what it might look like today? So even if you're not aware of your student's loss, we can assume there was a loss. In 2013 to 2014, there were over 1,500 children in Cook County taken into protective custody by DCFS. That even if this was in the measure of their own safety, they were separated from their primary caregiver. They felt that. More than 2.7 million children in the US have an incarcerated parent. Approximately 10 million children have experienced parental incarceration at some point in their lives. This likely impacts the students you're working with, and if not them directly, then close loved ones as well. Here we go. We also have to think of timing. As we approach the end of the year, there are a lot of goodbyes. So there's the compounding factor. If they only had to deal with goodbye from you, their ability to cope might be able to cover that. But if this is their threshold, and they have goodbye to their teacher, and goodbye to their friends, goodbye to steady food support, goodbye to you, we just passed their threshold. So thinking about what else is going on this time of year. And also what else goodbye means. What does it mean for the summer? What does it mean for life without you? What does it mean in their lives without this program? And choice is key. When you decide to break up with someone, you're going to feel a little bit differently than if you're broken up with. When you decide to leave a job, you're going to feel a little bit differently than when you're fired. Choice matters. It might be that this choice is beyond your control, but it is absolutely beyond the child's control. And we want to recognize that. So ultimately, how do we make sense of the goodbye? We want to provide space for the full range of feelings. We want to account for different forms of communication. So things like coloring, things like drawing, writing, talking about it, pointing. We want to encourage reflection. And we want to remember that this might be the first chance they've ever had a supportive adult to really walk them through an intentional goodbye. And you could set up a pattern for them for their whole lifetime. That might feel like a lot of pressure. I want to reassure you. There is a phrase in the social work and psychology world coined by Donald Winnicott, a very famous theorist, that says you just need to be good enough. That is literally the phrase that is used. It is the first reference to parenting, to be a good enough mother. And what was found in research is that just meeting the needs of a child to the best of your ability, to be attuned, to work on that caring relationship, that was found to be enough. Didn't have to be perfect, didn't have to buy the moon and back, get the best gift, get the most expensive shoes. Just had to be good enough. Kids with good enough adults in their life grew up to be healthy adults, who then had good enough relationships with other kids who grew up to be healthy adults. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna step in it. You're gonna bleep it up. That's okay. In fact, I would encourage it. Show them your mistakes. Own it. Say that this is hard for you and you're trying to figure out the right way to say it too. And that you're gonna figure this out together. And that if they feel like something you've said or done hasn't felt right to them along the way in this goodbye, that they can tell you that and you can hear that and not get upset at them, and that you're gonna figure out a different way to communicate with them. If you've taught them only that, I would say your relationship has been quite a success. Another way to mark your time together is to literally mark your time together. The handout with the single line, which is not proprietary, you can recreate a single line if you choose it, is to make a timeline with your students. Mark the highs, mark the lows. Literally, you can use the line as the divider. It could be a chronological line. It could be the good moments, the bad moments. You can infuse these two. They could draw pictures. They can write memories. They can mark on there things that were never said that they really wanted to say. Things that they regretted. Things that were done that they loved. Things they wish they could do differently. And there on the paper, you can hold your relationship. And they can look back on it. And you can remind them that whether it's on paper or not, you hold it. And you hold them with you, even if you don't continue to see each other. By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. So, it's this side. There we go. Here are my top tips. Try to give as plenty of notice as possible. Usually we think, I'm going to tell them the week before because I don't want to ruin anything until then. Well, I'm just going to make them anxious up until that moment. So why think about this dread this thing? And we usually feel better if we know something's coming. If I were to tell you, okay, at noon, somebody's going to come in here in a bear suit and scream fire, everyone leave, you'd probably feel a little bit more prepared than if that just happened. That is not going to happen. So giving some heads up, yes, will elicit an initial reaction and might create some anxiety and some feelings along the way. You might get some pushback in the following weeks, but ultimately it will allow for the relationship, time for the relationship to repair itself so that you can get back on track for your goodbye. Set clear boundaries. This is so hard. But if you say that the last time you're going to see each other is June 1st or whatever date it is, make it June 1st. Don't then show up on June 3rd, popping in just to say hi, or 2 weeks later. If you know you're going to their graduation or a school event, you can include that in your plan. but also make clear that you won't see each other after that, if that's the case. It's really easy to be like, oh, look, we'll see you later, because the see you later poster has a lot of hope and positive things on it. And that feels a lot better than the goodbye, in which we feel emotional. And if it is see you later, then you can say see you later. But if it's goodbye, respect them enough to say goodbye. It is so hard and I want to see you again, and we're not planning on that. And so the last day I will see you is this date. And beyond that, I will be thinking of you. Direct, concise language. Things are wrapping up. The end is coming soon, right? But home stretch. But this doesn't really tell you when. Excuse me, that is my nonprofit phone restarting itself. So as much as possible, tell them exactly what you know. It's okay to say what you don't know. And sit with them in that uncomfortable space. Suppress that urge. Note it in yourself, but suppress that urge to like make it all better and reassure them and throw in those buts. And instead, sit with them in that, like, this is so hard. This feels so unfair. We're so sad. This is tough. You're angry. I'm a little angry. We're disappointed. Ugh. And sit with it. Create room and leave room. Offer those opportunities. And don't force it. As we said, every kid works at their own pace. And we want to think about all those other factors. So for some of your students, this will happen real naturally, real easily. They'll want to talk with you about it. And for other students, they're not going to want to. And you can say, it's okay that you don't want to talk about it now. And if and when you do, I'm here to talk about it. And you might even say, and I'm going to bring this up a few more times, just in case you do want to talk about it. And you can let me know how you feel about that. You might be surprised. No, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. Oh, wait, no, I'm sad. But it's not till that 5th, 6th, 7th time that it comes out. You don't have to force it. No, you are really sad. We're just, okay, right now you feel fine. Thank you for letting me know. I'm going to check in with you again in another week. A couple more activities to think about. I've done one where we build a tree, and on the leaf, they leave behind a lesson for the next one. The next mentee, the next kid. You could have them leave advice for the next mentor. You build a tree of knowledge. That's a great way to mark the end. I've done 5 takeaways. You print out little hands, or you have them even trace their own hand or your hand, which can be a nice way to take you with them. And on each of the different fingers, they write one thing that they remember, one takeaway they want to have. And they take that hand with them. Those are a couple other. I want to leave time for questions. I realize I went through that really quickly, so if you want me to go back through anything, if you want to talk about specific cases, we thought we'd leave some time for that. So any questions? Or the yeah buts, like I like to call them. That sounds good, but yes.
I do. So one of my little kindergarten students, so far, has only used English words when he's counting. So there'll be 1, 2, 3, no other dialogue, because I don't think he's Chinese. I don't think he knows our language yet. So, any suggestions for my little guy? And he's a dear. We act things out. He acts things out. I mean, he'll trace. He does. You know, he's a lovely little kid. I really love him. But I'm just, there's not going to be. We're going to have to do something besides talking, because I can't. You know, he doesn't respond in English.
I think the gingerbread person activity, the drawing, that could be a great one. You might need some visuals to go with it. You might need a book or a picture in which someone's waving goodbye. You might even see if you can get the word goodbye in his native language.
Oh, okay. That's good.
so that you can put that on paper with, some question marks, with happy, sad, even pictures of feelings, faces. And those are all Googleable. You can get these posters with all these different feelings depicted in just cartoon faces. And he could point, he could color himself, he could draw how he feels with that goodbye.
Okay, that's good, thank you.
That might be some ways to start the conversation without language. Without the words. And we communicate without words all the time.
We do.
Yeah.
You're talking about goodbye in the program when you're not going to see them again, right? So what if you have a student and you're not necessarily going to have that student next year because you may have requested it and you want to change and you're coming back? What kind of, how would you address that goodbye? Because they're going to see you with a new child the next time, right?
I would say, not that whole bit of I requested not to spend more time with you. Sometimes we tell the bride on her wedding day that she's beautiful, no matter what she is. But that you could speak to, so next year's going to look a little different. Right? I'm going to come back, and you're going to come back, but we're not going to be working together. So you might see me, and not only will you see me, but you might see me with someone else. You might have some feelings about that. And you're going to be with someone else, and I might have some feelings about that. In fact, we might have a lot of feelings about that all at the same time. And that's where actually, depending on the age of how old the student?
She's in 5th grade right now. Do they go up to 6th grade? Is that, so she might come back next year?
She might come back.
Yeah.
So even speaking to just all that we don't know, even if you know you're coming back with your student, and in your mind you're like, yes, this is happening, kids move, you move, life happens, right? So there's never a guarantee of that. So in some ways, you can always talk about the plan is, which gives space for change, rather than I promise. So instead of I promise to see you next year, the plan is for us to work again together next year. And I'm looking forward to that. Or the plan is for you to come back and work with someone else, and for me to come back and work with someone else. And what is that going to feel like? And so for a 5th grader, I might say, really diving into the multiplicity of feelings. That we can have a lot of feelings at one time with that. And so does she want to identify those different feelings? And you could use that same feelings chart, but with the words underneath, not just the faces. And she could, she could do a lot of things. She could make a pie graph and divide it into different percentages of how many different feelings she might have about that. I take sometimes beans or pennies, and they can put them on the different feelings, more beans or pennies, if they might have those bigger, more happiness, but a little bit of sadness. And you might cue for different situations, right? How might we feel, and maybe you both do your own. How might we feel if we see each other in the hallway after not seeing each other for a while? A lot of excitement, maybe a little sadness, because I haven't seen you in a while. All right, I see you working with someone else. Maybe a little jealousy and a little sadness, but also pride that you're continuing this great work, even if I'm not there. Right? You go through those different scenarios. Yeah. Yes.
So for our after-school programs, we generally, the age group we like to target is 4th and 5th grade. So for those 5th graders, when they're like, can we come back next year? For those specific programs, we're like, I've said in the past, this program is not for 6th graders. Is there a better way to say that without it just, I don't want to lie to them, but maybe there's a better way to phrase that.
I think honesty all the way, I'm with you. Lying to a child to try to make it all better doesn't make it all better, because the truth is still there, right? And no lie is going to cover for the truth at the end of the day. I would employ the word and. So you set a limit. I first recognize the feeling, I put and then I set the limit. And that works for a variety of situations. Will you bring me like a goodbye gift? And we could have pizza, and you could bring candy. And you'd be like, oh, you so want to celebrate our goodbye. And I'm not allowed to bring any gifts for students. I don't know if this is the policy, I'm assuming. Okay, thank you. I'm not allowed to bring any gifts, even when I really, really want to. Even when you want to. So you really want to come back to this program. It's so important. We really want you to come back, and it's only available for 4th and 5th graders.
Okay.
You're going to be in 6th grade next year. And so both things are true. I would love to have you here. You would love to be here. And this is the limit. And when they go, but, you know, well, can't you make an exception? Oh, you want this so bad. And this is the limit. It's just that and you're like, really? So at what point, they keep asking. That's right. Eventually it clicks. Part of what I think our students are looking for in us is, are you going to be consistent? Because it is a gift to a student, to a child, to say, I'm going to set up this limit and I'm going to hold this limit. Because what you tell that child is you are a reliable, consistent, safe adult. Oh, if everyone could be a reliable, consistent, safe adult, the world would be a better place. Does that help them?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Other questions? Or comments? Things that I don't have all the answers. Things you've done as you've navigated these situations that you felt have worked really well? Well, I know you have a lot of good ideas. I hope you're able to share them with each other. I want to leave you with a few words that are not even my own. Usually others say it best. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. So much of work with children is just planting the seeds. Maybe we see a little sprouting. Know that with your ending, you are planting a seed of healthy relationships and what that can look like, and promote growth, and that seed may not sprout until they go to break up with their first partner, and they do it with respect and direct communication. And you may never know that, but somewhere one day you might feel that little chill, and you're like, that's my student having a healthy end to a relationship. All changes, even the most longed for, have their melancholy, for what we leave behind us is a part of ourselves. The relationship does last and does persist beyond your presence there. And my go-to phrase is, I will hold you within me. I will think of you, I will keep you in my heart, I will keep you in my mind, I will keep you in me and my experiences. You find an authentic way to say that for yourself, or maybe not at all, because that sounds a little too hokey. But that sentiment is true. Your goodbye is not a forever goodbye, because I know that I remember the people who made a difference in my life, and so will these kids. If you wouldn't mind taking a moment to fill out that pink survey, I'm going to stick around in case there's any more questions that you are interested in talking about one-on-one. And I've also included my contact information. Please feel free to email, call, text, carrier pigeon, smoke signal, whatever form of communication works best for you. Thank you all.
Thank you.